I'm super prepared to record this video. You can see my plan here. Community update. I've had a task on my list rolling over for a couple weeks now. And I think part of it is avoidance. Definitely, I can justify having it at the top of my priorities for all sorts of perfectly justifiable reasons. Client projects, doubling down on acquisition. Right. But if I'm really honest with myself, I have avoided the update for some time because going back into it. This community now is a year and a half old. And this experiment on school is aggressively, I've been working on it for the last year and a half. And I'm so grateful to school, to the platform. The technology has been so helpful. The people, of course, the members and clients, there would not be a business without them, without you all. I've been in a transitional period for a while. Several years ago, I realized that on one hand, I was really happy with, I was making good money. I was unhappy with the risk profile. If you only have one client and you lose one client, you have zero clients. If you have three clients and you lose one client, that's a third of your revenue. I have had a dream for years to build a self-service SaaS platform and to productize my work as a COO. I've worked in close proximity with a lot of small business owners, and the patterns that I've observed, the problems, the challenges seem to be close to ubiquitous. So stitching together a series of best practices and frameworks that I've found in the wild, in books and courses has been my approach. And it's done me well. I've been invited into places, into circles of trust. 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have expected. So I'm grateful for that. It's a blessing. But, but I wasn't happy still. I really wasn't happy because I just felt there's like burning call to adventure, call to the wild, call to the what if. It's the same force that I felt as a much younger man at 17 and 18, felt the call to service in the Marines. Anyone who knew me then could attest to the fact that I was singularly focused on one thing. I was joining the infantry. I didn't want any other branch job. I wanted Marine infantry. Nothing could get in my way. And oh boy, did I get my wish. But dude, I will be honest with you. When I was making the most money I had ever made in my life, I was probably the most unhappy I've ever been. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which extends beyond the scope of this video, but my commitment to myself and to you is to be honest, to be real. Something I say with my clients a lot is in business, the heaviest weight we place on the scales of decision making is economics. It's a game that keeps track based on revenue, based on financial performance. But in the same vein, I'll be speaking with teams, managers, individual contributors, even the founders, and we'll talk about competitiveness in our market. We'll talk about expectations from our customers, and we'll talk about our own individual careers. An engaged workforce is what people talk a lot about. So what does that mean? As an operations leader, helping achieve that, maintain that, that's a big ask. something we'll say is, how do we do portfolio defining work? How do we use this moment in time to build upon the best work of our careers? Whether we're in software, customer support, marketing, admin, finance, project management, we end up having to come to terms with the need for creativity, for judgment. There's a transmutation that has to occur. The creative act has to occur. Even if you're punching data into a spreadsheet, jamming out emails, the creative act is something that we're all confronted with in one way or another. And you cannot separate ego from creativity. You can't separate the part that makes you yourself, because connected to the creative act there's a heart component there. There's a vision component there. There's something to do with your life force, bringing something to life from a state of an ineffable implicit domain of the mind, bringing that forward into the material plane. That's the creative act. That's the transmutation. The kind of philosophical stuff that most professionals have zero tolerance for. So I can record YouTube videos about it and share my observations, because there is that common pattern. I share this basis because we say that in business, it's important for an idea to stand on its own. It's important to test our assumptions. It's important to separate ourselves from the work. So it's not attached to our egos. The organization, the business is not us, but it takes so much of us to build. If that's not the case, it will never grow. What you put in is what you get out, right? So we have to pour out our heart and soul into a company as a founder, as a business leader. And we have to intentionally disengage that emotional tie to view it for what it really is. Besides saying it's a daily practice, like so many other required things in business, just showing up continuously to try and do it better. Your map is that thing for me. I haven't wanted to face it. In the community specifically. And look, we've been doing weekly plans, coffee hours, deep focus, and all of the stuff. We've got a cool training program and templates. It's there, right? It's not like I've shut it down or gave up on it, but everyone responds differently. I don't know if it's your attachment style or what, but when the brain is fully engaged, I could sit down, pitch where we're at very crisply and succinctly. If I was standing in front of a board of directors, if I was standing in front of a group of investors, even if I was pitching to employees, where we're at, the narrative, the strategy, the structure, the architecture, frameworks, everything could be presented crisply as part of a grand strategy for validating our assumptions, for demonstrating product market fit. Right? And I know that's important. Like, obviously, it's one of the things I get paid to do. But, oh man, on this one piece, the venture map community, my heart is so tied to it. So much of myself in the work that when I come to the board, like, have to really show up, not in a way that's squinting and one-eyed, and I just do what I have to do, get back to work, get back to my day job with my clients. But when I show up to it with that spirit of adventure, when you show up to answer the call for your life, it requires a mental framing and a heart posture that is unique, that is open. There's a vulnerability there. The courage to keep doing that every day, week, month, quarter, year after year. I don't know if it necessarily gets easier. In my case, at least, I think in some ways it gets more difficult because so many more responsibilities. And there's so much more of a groove carved out for how your day should look, how your week should look. You can justify never answering the call and convince yourself that what you're doing outside of the calling, what you're doing bolted onto the calling, what you're doing in the periphery of the calling is in support of it, but never actually be in it, never actually be at the center of God's will for your life. Hiding from yourself is easy to do. Standing in front of that reflection psychologically, bearing witness to that reality is oftentimes a mortifying endeavor to see yourself, like where you're at for this type of work, because what is being represented with the venture map is a reflection of your image, the mental model that you have for your life's work. A financial dashboard is nice. A project management tool, it's cool. CRM, fantastic. Social media scheduling platform, performance is on, ads dashboard, all that stuff is great. It's needed, but it doesn't show you everything. Never has. And that's not designed to. Seeing everything at once, totally different game. When the work is painful, it's natural human nature to avoid it. And that's what I've been doing with Venture Map. I've been avoiding the community. I told myself to just sit down and come clean. Tell people where you're at. Months ago, back in October or November of last year, I made the transition into the free community around that October timeframe. So where we used to have Venture Map Elite and Venture Map Free, I consolidated all of our paid members into Venture Map Free. We did a huge discount, lowered the rate, consolidated the scope. I came to a realization. I said, the story we're going to have to tell our members is that being an operations leader is difficult, but also risky. It's difficult in the sense that just doing it for a single company, single small business, it's really hard. Most people don't do it that well. And most companies have a hard time finding someone who can really get around it for all sorts of very justifiable reasons. Secondly, being an operations leader within a single company is really risky. So not only does it take everything you have to do it well for one company, one client, you lose one. So being a fractional integrator, some people call themselves management consultants, but business coaches, we can talk about there's a distinction between all of those, but there's a lot of overlap. My experience is as a second in command, a COO, an integrator. There's a lot of coaching that goes into that. There's a lot of consulting work where you've got to produce deliverables. You have to make recommendations. And I realized that the time that I took off being in the mix as a fractional integrator, working with clients full-time, to breaking away to create a productized, systematized, scalable version of my work, a framework and a methodology to flesh out that framework, the venture map. I've talked about that in a number of other videos. How can you build an infrastructure for a company that allows it to become self-improving? And I spent a long time on that, totally self-financed. It was intense. It wasn't obvious that what I was doing was the right thing or that it was going to work. But it got to a point where burned the boats in a lot of ways. I crossed the Rubicon and I made it so I had to figure out a lot, which was, how do we take a 4-month consulting engagement and turn it into a week-long project? How do we take something that people pay us multiple 5 figures for and deliver it for $100 a month? And that was one of the most insane challenges I've ever been confronted with, because not only are we having to figure out how to deliver it, we're also figuring out how to acquire a totally new ICP. We did that. We ran it. And back in October, it's time to get back into the fight. It's time to really do this again, because we've got a bit of a foundation. My original effort, like carpet bombing, and every single person that came through the venture map, I would do pretty much the entire venture map. for them in a week. And after we did a dozen or so of those, we found a statistically significant heat map on the highest area of concentrated value, which was on strategy formulation, specifically quarterly planning. And we reduced the scope into that 20% and did it a bunch more times. And I ran that now with dozens of business owners and codified it, productized it, tested it. It's opened up a narrow offering, which is what's on the venture map community now, strategy execution system. Now, strategy is one part, the execution is another. Figuring out what to do, helpful to have a facilitator, helpful to have an integrator, helpful to have somebody who knows how to do it really well. So you don't have to worry about the process. You worry about the subject matter within it. That's a big idea. A lot of people will just, earn a crust by just facilitating quarterly planning. It's really important. A lot of people would show up and help hold space on a weekly basis, even come in to help establish that daily stand-up rhythm. But that's half of the job of a COO. The other half is the execution. Benchmarks abound for automating strategy execution. Just recently, Clogbot or Moltbot is demonstrating this direction, which is AI that does stuff for you. And we are racing into that capability set as a generation. And the infrastructure that we're building with the venture map is positioned to take advantage of that. So there's been much work at a professional and entrepreneurial level. As a consultant, as a fractional integrator, I've been executing 11, 12 hours a day, nonstop. This is my one window of time to talk about it as a creator. Maybe that's the founder level. Maybe it's the heart level for me. This thing has been the place where I have poured out my heart for so many years, poured out my heart and my soul. It is a statement of belief in something that should exist, but doesn't. It's a nudge towards the future and is a viciously heartbreaking endeavor a lot of the time. And it also has been rewarded at an unprecedented scale in my personal life. You got to be involved. Can't really half-ass it, to be honest. So towards the end of last year, I started thinking everybody that's coming in here is like a solopreneur coach and an operations person, really. Somebody who isn't just pie in the sky on ideas, but actually has a bit of dirt under their fingernails. They know they've got an appreciation for feasibility. They know how hard things are, like doing things in the real world. They've got a sense of that. I like to believe most of the people we're attracting are operations people. That's not compartmentalizing them without any strategic capacity. On the contrary, most of who we have are expeditionary in that regard. They can contribute meaningfully to strategy formulation, but they have that foot on both sides to help intermediate and enable the execution of the strategy. So that's what I mean by operations leaders. All right. So around this time, last year, I started saying to myself, I want to build a community that I really want to be a part of. Because the first phase of it was taking all consulting work and productizing it. I had no members in the community. They were all just clients paying membership rates. You can imagine how difficult that was to justify to my wife. But we would never have done what we've done had we not gone through that constraint, forced so much innovation through that time. But when that kind of stabilized and I realized, okay, our SOPs, our automations, our outputs are all really predictable. And we're getting into a really good flow. And now what I'm seeing is the problem on the execution side. Now we have to start getting into a few areas, like how can we help people execute? Now we've got this really clean, best-in-class capability that generates quarterly plan that's aligned with your long-term vision and project plans and tasks. We help everybody stay accountable on a weekly, daily basis. We've done a lot of testing on that front. In a decentralized capacity, it's one thing to do with a centralized organization, but doing it for a bunch of solopreneurs, wasn't exactly obvious. And frankly, still isn't. But I realized, you know what? I need to lead from the front now as a member of the organization, as a founding member, as the leader of the community. It's not enough to just help people plan. It's going to be required on me to actually help them execute. And the biggest constraint that everyone faces is revenue. Solopreneurs struggle with earnings. And that's obvious. You can even see here that earnings directly from the work at that time was relatively low. And that's so when I said, you know what, dude, I've been running this for a long time, self-funding, keeping it lean to go through these hardships and to build the next version of this. I need to get back into the fight now. This hybrid consultant doing done for you work to productize the system, to productize the method, to figure out what's going to be scalable, real thorough, insane level of customer understanding. Now that we're entering into this new phase of real community building, where I have the productized offering, and it's getting better all the time. We have some core people that want to foster the sense of belonging, sense of group identity, sense of relationships, and the human element. That's what we're into. This is like phase one. Everything else is a precursor of the community, of the scalable model. These people that are coming in, all the cool frameworks and stuff in the world doesn't mean anything unless it's going to put more money in their pocket. That's the bottom line. The heaviest weight on the scales of decision making for business is economics. I know that all too well. So I said, all right, cool. Consolidated from spending my time on figuring this stuff out for the last year plus. Now it's going to be pretty streamlined. I can spend an hour on it Monday mornings to stand up the week and an hour on it on Friday for a copy hour. And that's it. Got a good course in there, which is pretty solid, actually. I'm quite happy with it. And it just runs through the whole process. Probably update this at some point, but it's still accurate. 2 hours a week, you got this. Now get back into full-time execution mode so you can have the story to tell. Get back into the marketplace. Start doing the fractional work again, because that's what all of the people in the community are looking for. How do I get clients? How do I generate revenue? How do I do it in a way where I can make a lot of money for a lot of clients extremely efficiently and not kill myself in the process? And I know how to do that. By the grace of God, I've done it before. I'm doing it now. So I want to show you guys how I'm doing this. Again, it's one of those things I want to do in a very respectful manner. I want to do it in a very humble manner. There's a marketing element to it. Join the community. But I prayed a lot going into this because I genuinely believe it is by God's grace alone that I have any money, that I have any thing. I've been in a place where I've had nothing more times than I'd like to admit. This would not happen just because I'm smart or have a system or work hard. Do I work hard? Yes. Am I intelligent? Yes. Do I have a great network? I do. But those things have been true, and I've also had nothing. Luck isn't the difference. It's God providing for me and my family, God opening up a level of prosperity. I want to put that down unambiguously because that is true. And I will continuously reference that to keep myself honest, to keep myself humble, and to just make sure that practical reality is established. No amount of reach or content marketing or whatever is going to generate sufficient leads into the funnel for bookings or for conversions if God doesn't allow it. So I'm not a preacher. I'm not like a theologian, but I do know the importance of doing everything I can to stay right with God. All right. And that's such a difficult thing to bring up in the context of business, but it's true. It's that dichotomy on the entrepreneurial life, pouring out your heart and soul, but then detaching it. So facts, and this is generated by Gemini, which is really helpful. But basically around that time, we streamlined the new community, the consolidated community. I just started tracking every single week my monthly recurring revenue. Every single week. Well, Gemini didn't have all of it. I just gave it the beginning and the end numbers because reasons, lazy reasons. For some time, there was not any revenue coming in, and we closed, sustained it, closed another one, sustained it, closed another one, etc. The big idea is every single one of the engagements is well scoped within a methodology I'm really fond of. It's funny because it's the exact type of thing we do with the strategy execution system. And it's the way the work gets done ultimately. It provides agility at the task level while protecting against scope creep. It solves the problem inherent with consulting contracts, which is that the scope of work is brittle. Anytime something emerges that needs to be responded to, that adaptation is scope change. And that requires a bureaucratic element, and that takes everyone out of group flow and reimposes the transactional dynamic, which siphons out a lot of the creative act defining competitive in the marketplace. That gets tricky when we're always layering in the bureaucracy, the transactional stuff. But the rookie being super dynamic and bought into the team vision is just going to be continuously worn ragged because clients rarely have awareness of working in a way that's constrained in scope. They're always happy to receive additional work for free and will oftentimes request it. So there is a balance. You have to be able to preserve the container on scope. So doing that in a way that provides maximum maneuverability and clarity and alignment without being rigid. That's essential. Defining the total bandwidth associated with the task, allowing the task, the production capacity to be translated into lifetime and having a sliding scale between production and lifetime and having a designated mechanism for asynchronous correspondence. My approach has been and will continue to be presenting a really strong offer, special thanks to Hormozy, right? For this, but presenting a really strong offer that is a no-brainer. It's really solid. And when they get in, you just deliver. And frankly, even before that, the free offer is solid. A lot of people pay for the free offer in other places, and what they get back isn't even that good. And what you give for free is better than what most people get when they pay for it. It's faster, it's higher quality, it's more personalized. And then what you're offering after that is a tiny bit of money, tiny bit of their time, really fast, really high quality, badass result. And it's risk-free. You can have the money back if they don't like it. So many books, so many thought leaders talk about the importance of a risk reversal, of a service guarantee, and how service providers are scared to do that because God forbid they do a bunch of work and they have to refund somebody. I feel that way sometimes. A long time ago, I was scared. What if they actually want a refund? Thankfully, I've never been in that position before. Yeah. But yeah, maybe once somebody who joined the community. If you approach it the right way, it should never be a problem. Because if somebody really wants a refund, give it to them. Life is too short to force people to work with you. The service guarantee is essential. You're going to pay this much, get this much. It's going to be really quick and easy for you. I'm going to do all the work. And if you don't like it, at the end, you can keep all of it no matter what. I always give you a refund if you're not happy. That type of thing is an absolute no-brainer. After you sustain that level for a while, and they get into a flow, they learn how it works, the cadence is flowing, delivering, the rapport is established. Then you say, hey, we should do this. I'm going to help you do that on the house. Happy to do that. That's a surprise and delight, unexpected bonus. Now you get to go above and beyond. But guess what? That's basically the lead magnet for your next level of offer. That's the thing that you want them to pay for 2 weeks from now, a month from now. But you just give it to them for free. Just start doing it. People underestimate the importance of demonstrated capabilities. When you're an operations leader, you realize if there's room for interpretation, it will be misinterpreted. If you expect your direct reports to just interpret what we're trying to do, nothing's ever going to get done. You have to be explicitly clear on the outcomes, on the leader's intent, on the mechanism of impact, on its integration within the overall ecosystem. But people need to be aware of these things to do the best work of their careers in order to contribute towards an impact at an organizational level that's aligned with our strategic initiatives. You have to really ensure there's alignment. Likewise with clients, you can say, hey, I can do this for you. We can also help you here. That means nothing to them a lot of the times. And maybe even worse, it means something different to them than what you're actually talking about. And the amount of time and effort it's going to take for you to describe it, in my experience, is way longer, more painful, and more risky than to just give them a free sample. Does it require like showing up and sweating a bit, putting your effort into it? Yeah, it's not easy. Like, I don't know, get a job in the government. But if you want the freedom entrepreneurship can provide, certainly not going to be freaking easy. You know that already. So it's already not easy. So it's already hard. It's difficult. You just a little more hard isn't that worse. It's not that much worse, right? Just do it because it always pay off. Even if it's not 1-to-1, say you do it 3 times, you do it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and it only pays off once. The one time it pays off for that upsell is it's way worth it. Okay. So just be generous, deliver the gratuitous service offering, deliver that surprise and delight bonus, and do the literal work that's at your higher tier. Give the higher tier stuff away at the lower tier people for a bit because it builds a ton of goodwill. It actually helps people who need help, who want that value and don't know. A lot of times they don't even know what the level of additional help really looks like. And in a world where the skepticism is so high, the trust that you build with the clients is worth its weight in gold. When you are known for saying, hey, here's what I can do to help you, and somebody just takes a little bit of a risk, they just give a little bit of time, a little bit of information, and boom, you deliver. And you're like, hey, I can do this thing for you. It's going to build on what we just did. It's going to take a little bit of time. And if you don't like it, get your money back. They trust you. They give you a little bit of money. You deliver. And then when you're in that, you're like, hey, I can give you a little bit of extra surprise. I think you're great. I want to keep doing some more. And they love it. At the end of the week, 2-week, month-long trial of that stacked additional scope, that bonus scope, they already know that it's extra cash, that it's extra bandwidth allocated to the engagement. And then you can just talk to them about that. Hey, it's been awesome. Well, I think what we need to do, you guys basically have 2 or 3 options. You can sustain it on your own, which is totally possible. And I can help you with the handoff there. We can translate some of what we have now on the production side into the live time side to keep that going, or vice versa. Or you guys can scale up. We can surge capacity. You can increase the investment to be commensurate with that amount of bandwidth allocated. And regardless, we can still have the outcomes that we're seeing now based on your feedback, which is moving the needle. That's the right way to do it. That's why we've been able to grow 330% over the last December, January, February, 4 months or so. And by the grace of God, we're going to continue growing. So I'm, going open kimono with revenue figures and stuff. I told myself, we want to get to add an extra 0 behind this before we start talking about it. But I just realized that's not real. That's like marketing guru BS. I want to be authentic, share the journey and be real. Somebody told me today that I respect a lot that they miss working in the venture map since we've pared down so much of what we offer in the community and our product efforts over the last year. If I visually represented what we're doing in the venture map community right now, it would only be these 2 spots. There is architecture that exists here and here, just to put it, there's a lot. If this is the most abstracted form that I could represent this information, we've got 2 out of 7. We've got 6, 7, 8, 2. So what is that? Barely 25% of the whole map. So it's time to get back into it. I've been contemplating the right way to do it. Is it going to be through this masterclass? Is it a training program? And I think it's going to be a build with me type of thing. I think I have to start from scratch just to show you guys. I did this a while back, right? I did the whole culture. And by the time I taught it all, I was exhausted with the process. I thought, okay, you guys are on your own. Nobody's going to cut through this. I'm just going to do it. I think what I have to do is walk through the entire thing with you guys and build it live and continue to show you my thinking and then share all of that. So all of the templates, all of the how to do it, I think it's just going to be in this board where it'll be open and you guys can just click onto it, come into it and see it. And what's more, I think I'm going to have this open Maybe I'll make it so it's only in the community. But that's it. So everyone's going to have access to the board, the big board. And I'll build that out little by little. Everyone already has access to a blank board. It's not exactly obvious for most people how to flesh it out. I'm going to teach it and we'll have some fun. All right. So that's the update. The only other thing I could share is where things are at with the software Taskmaster. All right. Pretty stoked about Taskmaster. This is the labor of love. Really excited about delivering this app to our community members first and to solopreneurs later. We're going to be opened up for alpha testing pretty soon. We've got some pretty cool stuff in here. I'm going to wrap up here and say, I appreciate you guys. I'm curious if anything stood out in this. Definitely a little more of a heart-to-heart discussion than it is like a gee whiz, bang up kind of hookable YouTube video. I think I had to get that off my chest. I had to let you guys know where I'm at as a person, as an individual, as a creator. Because on the professional side, every day I'm brought in to make judgment calls and recommendations and help support the formulation and execution of strategy on behalf of the CEOs I serve and the companies I serve. And this is that one space where the artist gets to come to life. You have to be emotionally connected to your work to bring out that space. And then you have to sever it after you bring it to life so it can stand on its own. That process is messy at times and difficult, heartbreaking at times, but it can also be super rewarding. The net outcome from my work with this community has been very rewarding, and I'm grateful for that. I'm looking forward to what's to come in the year ahead as we deploy these new software capabilities, as I continue to welcome and invite new fantastic people into our group. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Until then, logging out.